chance. Better men than you've been led this dance. To go, leave me, run like you've never run before. I have seen the worst, and there is nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me.
Well, good evening or hello and welcome. I keep saying it, Alan. I keep saying good evening, and I'm supposed to be telling everyone that hello, how are you doing? Welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast. And you might be in your car during the day, you might be walking your dogs, you might be doing all these different things in your life, and I'm still saying good evening because we're recording this at night. It's ridiculous. Anyway, welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast in association with the Scottish Rugby Blog. I'm Craig Manson, and joining me tonight, supposedly joining us tonight, but is having current along with us all, having a few issues with the old technology tonight. Writer and European football enthusiast Iain Hay. I was going to say good evening, but he's not arrived yet, so we'll just see how it happens from there. And a resident doctor and someone who is able to tell loose from the tight, Alan McDonald. Welcome, Alan.
Hi, Craig. I'm hearing Ian's undergoing an HIA, but whether or not he will remember some of the plays afterwards, I'm not sure. So we might see him, we might not.
Aye, well, you know, the thing is, while Ian's doing that, we get to do this.
Look at us. Hey, look at us.
Look at us. Huh? Who would have thought? Not me.
Hey, look at us. We're on our own, Alan. While the mice are away, no, the cat's away, the mice can play, but then it's more about while the backs are away, the front rows and the forwards can play.
We'll just stick the pod up our jumper and they won't get a look at it. That's the plan.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So tonight we're going to chat about the news and a little bit about Scotland, and then we're going to move over to our Patreon part of the pod, where we'll do a deep dive into our latest Irish debacle, and whether Tooney is still our only hope. On the Patreon part, we mentioned the Patreon part. Our podcast is part of the Sports Social Network, and don't forget to give us a follow or a like on your favourite podcast app. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to give us a follow on social media. You can find all the links on our site, www.scottishrugbyblog.co.uk. If you're listening on Apple and like what we do, please leave us a review. It's always important, especially on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like more content, we do our Patreon side of things, where we get a little bit more leery and we talk about what's been bugging us this week. And I'm sure there's going to be plenty of swearing and plenty of things that have ripped our knitting this weekend. So you can subscribe to our Patreon from just £3 a month, plus the VAT, and that gives you access to our super secret Facebook group, the second part of tonight's podcast, as well as Patreon exclusives. So we will get cracking on. On Patreon, when you are a member of the Scottish Rugby podcast, you also get a little bit of access to different things that happen with Patreon, including our super secret Facebook page. But we also have the Scottish Rugby blog, which was basically what started the podcast off. Definitely, when you're on the latest stuff, we've got a couple of articles from Finlay Brown. One about Alexander Masabaka, who is the latest Toonie project, as well as he's done a piece on the under-20s, Scotland v Ireland under-20s as well. Finlay and all of our contributors are fantastic on the blog. It's well worth having a look and having a chat. I will say that because I did once write for the blog as well, which in my ghostwriting stage, I think I started. I was ghostwritten by Rory, but well, the less we talk about that, the better, I suppose. Anyway, we'll move on to the news, and we'll see where we are with there's a few different bits and pieces in the news, but ding dong, Alan, the witch is dead. Gatland is gone.
Yeah, and really, it was one of these ones where we were just kind of like, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if the press were shouting "dead man walking" as he came into his press conferences. Wales have been looking pretty bereft of ideas, unfortunately, and Gatland looks a bit like an old dog that doesn't know what to do with himself anymore, unfortunately, in the international stage. So I think it is right that he's gone. And the only reason he's hung on so long is his contract was quite so expensive, I suspect.
Yeah, it is going to be an interesting one. Just in time for him to go on tour with the Lions. Rob Howley as well isn't continuing. You know, Andy Farrell's needing a couple of assistant coaches.
Yep. Yes, that's going to happen. Absolutely. I hear Rob Howley's put a bet on it.
Well, I've put a bet on Rob Howley not being on the Lions here, but that's a different story. Also, he's been replaced by Matt Sherratt from Cardiff Rugby on an interim basis, and Matt has been very clear to say that he doesn't want to continue on in the role. He's just there to help out and be there for Welsh Rugby, which usually when somebody denies that they're interested in the job means that they're going to start and they'll continue on from after the end of the Six Nations. But he has done what everyone thought should be done, and he's called in Jared Evans, Max Llewellyn, and Gareth Anscombe into the squad. I have to say, one of the most sensible. I already like the guy because I think when you're looking at some of the youngsters, I've got nothing against the youngsters that are playing for Wales. I think they're doing a very, very good job with a very, very poor coaching side of things. So it's good to see them getting a little bit of backup with three players. Well, not so much old players because Max Llewellyn isn't really a massively old player, but three players who are absolutely playing at full chat at the moment, especially in Gloucester and Harlequins. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm slightly worried they've sacked him just in time to get a new coach bounce to play us. But
that was my thought. That was my next question for you, Alan. Was isn't this just perfect for Scotland? You know, we're all set for a Six Nations run. We get beaten by Ireland, which we think is going to happen anyway, and then all of a sudden Wales miraculously are phoenix from the fire.
Yeah, but we should. I mean, if we're the team we think we are, and even after Saturday, I think we are still more of the team than we thought we were than Saturday suggests. Then we shouldn't be scared about Wales having a new coach.
Yeah. But we're Scottish fans. We're always scared of little different things like that.
I'm scared of my own shadow now, frankly.
Yeah. And as usual, when we start talking about new coaches, etc. Franco Smith is in the mix with Simon Easterby and Michael Checker for replacing Warren Gatland. There are screams and howls of leave him alone from the Weege, and don't really think that Franco's going to head down to Wales, do we?
No. I mean, why would he leave Glasgow and jump in a bin fire that is Welsh rugby? It's an international job, but it's not like Franco's desperate. There will be plenty of international teams coming for Franco. And I do wonder, it became known that Leicester were after him. Mm-hmm. I have a sneaking suspicion that might be Franco's agent that's letting the SRU know that Leicester's after him. You know what I mean? I've got Leicester sliding in my DMs, mate. I'm not going to try and do a South African accent because it would cause an international incident. But I've got Leicester sliding into my DMs. Sure, you want to stick with Townsend? And all's fair. That's what Townsend did to Big Vern after all. So it's an accepted way of moving on in rugby. So I don't think Franco will be considering the Welsh job for a second.
Yeah, it's that is the interesting bit about it, is the fact that there's a lot of rumours going around, and I actually think the way everyone talks about Franco and how he is fantastic, loves the everyday work within a club. If he was going to move, you would think he goes off to a big club like Leicester, etc. I'm not saying that Glasgow's not a big club. I'm just saying that you do think that the money, etc., that he could now demand. You would think if he is going to move, it's going to be to something like that.
I think it'd probably be France, would be my guess, because there's more money there.
Very true, and that's where Big Vern went and was loved, if I remember correctly. So we'll move on. The BOF returns. Edinburgh v Zebre. The team's been named. A fairly standard squad from Edinburgh with some noticeable, obvious missing players. But Emiliano Boffelli returns after quite some time with his foot injury. I think it was a foot injury anyway, but and he returns for the game against Zebre. Great to see him back, Alan. I think he's one of those players that is a bit talismanic for Edinburgh.
He's been a cracking player for Edinburgh, and yeah, absolutely. Not just on the feet, not just with ball in hand, but also off the kicking tee as well. He's quite a player.
Absolutely. And would you believe it? It looks like, Ian Hay has arrived. Ian.
Worst nightmare is here. Hello.
Good evening, Ian.
Oh my God, it's Peter O'Mahony. Sorry.
Ooh.
Oh, you know what? I would take that as a compliment, being booed. I don't get many compliments these days. Also, don't ever equate me to that gentleman.
Well, we'll talk about
maybe. You said you were my worst nightmare, and currently that is my worst.
Oh no, I know where you live, so
we'll maybe talk about him in the Patreon. But we're just you missed a little bit about.
Sorry, I might have trousers and shorts.
That's all right. It's better than Johnny's Stuart Hogg shorts. Sorry,
it's better than having no trousers on your short.
That's true. That's.
I know. It depends what you're packing.
Depends. Anyway, we'll move on after that. But yeah, you've missed a bit about Gatland being gone, so it's nothing. You've not really missed anything interesting. But we're just talking about Emiliano Boffelli back for Edinburgh.
Yes,
and it's a real talismanic player for Edinburgh.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, when I saw he was back, I think he would probably held in a similar regard to Kyle Steyn among Edinburgh fans.
Yeah.
Mr. Consistency, Mr. Solid.
And very, very good under a high ball.
Indeed. Plus, where he doesn't have leadership qualities like Kyle does, or, he probably does, but he's not an official captain. His accuracy off the tee makes sure that scoreboard keeps ticking over.
Absolutely.
As we found out to our, our detriment when he's played for Argentina.
Yeah. Well, we'll move off of that, and because we haven't got any news from Glasgow at the moment, apart from because we haven't got any teams named for them yet. So that's why we've missed them. It's not the fact that I'm in the chair and I'm not talking about Glasgow at all. We have, however, mentioned Franco is in for the job for Wales, but that's a different story.
Hopefully that will never happen. Apparently, I've seen, I can't remember, I don't think it was on the offside line. I think somebody had, it was on a Warriors chat, Warriors supporters chat. Sione Vailanu. Now, a couple of months ago, I'd seen he was back in training, but apparently he kind of overdid it in his rehab. So that's why he's still a wee bit behind. But I think him and JP Dupree should be back reasonably soon. I think it was Peter Murchie was giving this update. Kyle Steyn not going to be back for Cup, but he's coming along as expected.
Good. And a little bit just to show there, a little bit from Brian Dalglish. Good to see both back, but happy that Wes is still at fullback. Yes, Brian, Wes Goosen has been a fantastic player for Edinburgh over the last year. He's definitely found his form with us, so I agree with you on that one. But we'll move on away from the men's game, and the last bit of news. Holly Davidson, it was announced today that she's received her Scottish Rugby referee cap, given to referees who have controlled a test match in what have I written there? I can't even read.
Tier 1 level.
At Tier 1 level in the men's game. Holly has been a trailblazer. Her highlights are including officiating the 2022 World Cup Women's World Cup final, Rugby World Cup Sevens final, Champions Cup, officiating URC, obviously, Six Nations, the Under-20s World Cup, Junior World Cup, officiating the South Africa v Ireland game. Portugal, Italy was the one that she won her Tier 1 cap for.
There was a particularly feisty Marvie Hoyt game in 2022, I think she did. That was that.
Yeah, certainly that would definitely be a feisty, a feisty game. Iain, a great career, but it's only just started, really, isn't it?
Yes, we complain about referees quite a lot. Very rarely have I complained about Holly Davidson. Yeah, like I said, even like neutral games on like Marvie Hoyt. I mean, that like I said, that was feisty. I remember the whistle was blowing frequently, but all of them were justified. I think it was Marvie Hoyt. It was down at Fullerton. Yeah, and whatever level she's been at, she doesn't seem to get flustered. She communicates clearly. There's no messing about. Yeah, I think she's one of the best in the game at the moment. Anyone who thinks it's a DEI hire, as they call it in America, is sorely mistaken and has not seen a lot of rugby.
Yeah, and Alan, I'm very, very surprised that we've not seen more of Holly Davidson, and especially in Six Nations and in November tests, etc., and the tours, because she is one of the clearest, and for me, one of the referees that will make a clear decision very, very quickly, whereas a lot of them do to and fro on the old TMO.
Yeah, I think she's excellent. What I don't have a great sense of is how quickly they bring referees through to this level. Is she being treated differently from a male referee of the same kind of background, or is she being brought through with the standard process? And I just don't know, but I think that would be interesting to look at. She is certainly where she is in merit, and you could, as you've said, make a case for her being a lot further on than she is. But she's only 32, so there is plenty of time for her, and I hope we get to see lots of her. The only downside is we won't ever be refereed by her. Yeah,
well, that's the thing, and I think she is a go-to referee, along with mind you, Sarah. I forgot Sarah's second name. who does a lot of the Prem games down in England. But I think Holly is a go-to for Women's Six Nations, Women's World Cup, etc. A lot of the under-20s, men's and women's games, etc. But I really do think it's about time we start seeing her doing a lot of the, with us having a lot of the Southern Hemisphere referees coming up and refereeing Six Nations, etc. It'd be good to see her doing far more in the Rugby Championship and a lot more in the Autumn Nations and things like that. But we'll see what happens from there. I can't put it off any longer, guys. We're going to do a little bit, as I said in the introduction, Ian, we're going to touch on Scotland 18, Ireland 32. We have to kind of talk about it, I guess, not only in the open pod, but we will go on to have a real rip apart of the fixture on the Patreon site, part of the pod.
Could we not just have used like AI to like mash up all of the old, like the last 4 years of podcasts about Ireland games, and then just like smash it all together? Because it's always the same damn problem.
It seems to be. I think that would be an ideal thing. We could have actually just sat on our backsides and just
I beat you on 20%.
Absolutely, just be sailing ourselves away. And mind you, I think that's what Gatlin's been doing, even though you think he's been sitting in a coach's box. But that's a different story altogether. The ball was delivered by Chris Hoy. A really fantastic moment again. I've got my own thoughts on that, and it's not. I'm not saying it's anything negative at all, but it's something we'll maybe talk about in the Patreon side. But a really emotional start to the game. Tries from Calvin Nash, Caelan Doris, and James Lowe on the Irish side. Tries from Duan van der Merwe and Ben White on the Scotland side. Ian, Scotland looked spooked from the start. I really believe they looked spooked from the start. Are we really weak-minded?
I don't know if that's the entire thing, but I just think it is a recurring theme that Ireland score early against us. I don't know how to counteract it. Are we terrified of them, or are we just not as well coached as them? No, they have that plan. They know they're going to come out hard and fast. They're going to make sure they'll probably try to catch the referees off guard. We'll maybe get onto that later in the patrons. But we just seem to crumble in front of them. And I don't know how to counteract it.
Yeah, and Alan, a lot of conversations have been going on in the media and with Scotland fans about us. We don't have the forward pack that Ireland do. We can't. We're not physical enough going forward, etc. Surely, these guys are fit. They're big lads in the Scotland team. If anyone's ever had the chance to be. Not that I'm sounding a little bit like I always do about Pierre Schumann, but you go and stand next to Pierre Schumann when I've been stalking him regularly. He's a big boy, Surely it's not physical size that's the issue.
I don't think it is. I think I think there's an element. It's, how we feel like the Bowl of Petunias and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Oh no, not again. Every time we play them and they score from the kickoff, the players must be feeling that as well. They must. So Ireland just have to come out and start fast and hard, blow Scotland off the ball, and then suddenly they're in their heads, they're pushing on. And I think the difficulty is, it was 8 years ago with their last win against Ireland at home. It was 2017, wasn't it? And it's just... They've just got a well of experience to go back to. We will win because we've done this before. And actually, I think in our team's heads, we're going to lose because this has happened before. And you just have to find a way to get out of that find a way to get out of that mindset. Look at what we've done at Twickenham, because we got that draw and then suddenly we're like, no, we can win at Twickenham, and that hoodoo's broken. And it's the same thing here, but and all empires fall in the end, as I said on Friday to my regret, but they do and they will, but it's just, it is bloody miserable at the moment. It's like being an Ireland fan against us in the 90s.
Yeah.
Glory days, Alan.
I enjoyed those days.
And Ian, Andy Steele has put in a question, and this is my next question. Was this a symptom of a lack of depth rather than talent, not playing with hunger as places not in any real jeopardy? That was going to be a question in the Patreon, but I'll bring it forward because, Scottish players, have we been hoodwinked? Do we really have depth?
We do in certain areas. It's just that, well, in particular, the back row where we are excellent and where it's where Matt Fagerson particularly has not performed for me. I'm a massive Matt Fagerson fan. I've been singing his praises for many years. But then the last 2 times I've done player ratings for the offside line. Was that an offside line, like Ian's mentioned, the offside line warning there, like a klaxon?
No, it was me getting an email, but it might have been.
Right. He's not been at that. He went to Tobin Park and he smashed Peter O'Mahony and Munster around. He went to Verstout and he was, in my opinion, man of the match in that. Man of the match, or close to man of the match, in the final in the URC against the Bulls. But then, against Ireland at the breakdown, we get smashed, and it's the same. It's the Glasgow back row, and when you've not got the Glasgow back row, you've got Jamie Ritchie, who's the best turnover guy in the URC. Locks, I think we might have to have a longer discussion about the depth there. But I don't really think that where we got battered all over the place, to be quite honest. But I don't think that's where we lack depth. It was in places like lock, although that is one spot, to be honest. Right, I might have contradicted myself there. But we got done in the back row, and that's one of the worst things. This is probably the best strength and depth we've had in Scotland. But again, we just went over the same problems. I mean, who would have thought really that Sus would start over Scoom, and Scoom's been starting for the last 2 years, pretty much consistently. So we do have competition, but only in that 23, and we just got blown away, I think.
Yeah, and it was obvious. The problem we had was we didn't have a, if we had a scrum with Zander and Schumann starting, we would have had a strong scrum for a period of time and then gone to a weaker scrum with Sus coming on or with Will Hurd coming on. What seemed to happen was we had a weak scrum with Sus starting, and then when we brought Schumann on, we then brought Hurd on, and immediately we're giving away penalties again. Now, okay, fair enough. We can, and I'm sure we'll talk about in the Patreon side of things. We'll talk about Andrew Porter and the scrummaging techniques that they use, Finlay Beelin especially. But Beelin, he has been a long-legged scrummager for many years, and he's always been caught out. But he had a phenomenal game on the weekend, and so we have to kind of sit and look at the fact that are we sitting here with are we sitting on our laurels saying, yeah, we're fine, we've got Schumann and we've got Zander Fagerson, and Zander will go for 80 minutes. Now, we lose Zander Fagerson. There's a very, very big hole in the tight head at this moment in time because we don't have a VP Nell to come in and plug the gap and just come on and scrummage for a wee while and put the odd ball between the legs and throw it out. We don't have that anymore. We have, I'm going to say this and that sounds terrible, we have journeyman props playing for us that come off the bench, and we've got a couple of superstars, and that's about it. And Sus, I love Sus. I thought he earned his place to go in the Lions, but he's not been the player that he was ever since Worcester. So
he seems to have struggled since Worcester went bust, hasn't he? And he was been sort of rounding about the place, away from his family, and that, well, that would mess with my head if I had to work away from my family for any length of time. With the amount of time rugby players are away from them anyway. So hopefully, Suz might come back to being a player. I mean, he rebuilt himself after that horrible injury, so hopefully he will pick up. But you're right; it does seem to be that Gregor's got a thing where they'll pick a stronger scrummaging tight head with their weaker scrummaging loose head, and then swap it round when the bench comes on.
Oh, sorry, I was clearing my throat there. Sorry, Alan.
That's good. It just the problem is that just means that we're kind of just above mediocre in the scrum the whole time, which allows the opposition to paint a picture that they're on top.
Well, one little thing that I mentioned it in my, I don't know if Dave Barnes edited it out. I tend not to look at my articles once Dave does them because I'm worried about people saying bad things about me. Is it Rory Sutherland's scrumming technique? I think he seems to have like a smoother technique. He's more square. Scuman occasionally has. I mean, Craig, obviously, I'm probably looking at you and you're about to roll your eyes at me. Scuman's a power guy. I mean, he's all brute force. Maybe occasionally you see him getting done for wheeling because he is just thinking, right, I've got the push on. Whereas I think Suz is more of a unit guy, like I'm going to make sure we're all going forward at the same time. And I don't think that Scotland particularly struggled in the scrum.
I think, we were popping up quite a lot, and we were going backwards a couple of times, in both with the original props on and with the replacements on. I think for me, where I find Suz is a technical prop. He may not be the heaviest. He may not be. I'm sure he's a very, very strong guy, but he's a technical prop. He has a good positioning, etc. Whereas, as you say, yeah, Schumann is a strong prop, but where Schumann has that extra ability is that Schumann can take you low, or can bring you high, and can adjust while he's there, while he's actually pushing. To put a basic line in. When he's given a shove, he can move, he can bring you lower, he learns. He doesn't just play one way. And I think because of the amount of pressure he is putting through, when you have a tight head up against him who's maybe boring in slightly, he collapses in with them and will go and can paint a picture that actually looks like it's him that's wheeling, when it's actually the loose, the tight head that's going up against them that's doing a little bit of black magic as well. So it's, yes, I think just as you say, there's a brute force there that Schumann has that other loose head props don't have. And we always used to say the brute force was the tight head and the loose head was the more technical. But actually,
spoken like a tight head, Craig.
Sorry?
Spoken like a tight head.
Yeah. But I was about to say the thing is that we actually, tight heads are quite technical too now, and you can see that with Zander.
I think with a tight head, you've got more stuff to worry about. It looks like taking me a bit free and loose, as the name suggests. With a tightie, you're like, I've got two sides to worry about here. Right? I've got this dude pushing here, although mind you, his break foot, so I might get a bit of a nudge on the bit of shoulder in there.
The thing people don't get about the front row is that is where the front row's shoulders meet the opposition front row. That is how the force in your scrum is transmitted through to the opposition scrum. So all that jockeying for position, moving the shoulders, etc., positioning, just to disrupt their push and get your push better. And that's why the battle there is so fascinating if you've played there. And less so if you haven't, I get that. But it is where the force, it's where your scrum's force meets other scrum's force. And I don't think people that haven't played there necessarily appreciate that and think it's all just pushing.
Well, I'm starting to enjoy all of it, all the angles and scrums, the lineouts, the mauls especially.
The malls can look an absolute mess all the time, but there's some really fantastic stuff going on in the malls. And I'll tell you one thing that's a lot of people, and we'll go into this in the Patreon side of things, but
when people call it kick tennis. When people say kick tennis, so tell you what, kick tennis can be quite interesting. It's not just they're not just kicking it back and forth. There's a whole system behind where they're kicking to and who's going where.
And we've got we'll move. We are going to head over to the Patreon in a minute or so, but we will have to do this first of all because Greg McLeod-Hillier has put up a wee comment, and this is going to have to come up here.
Insight, foresight, more sight. The clock on the wall reads midnight.
The Tuesday clock arrives once again in full force. Greg has put a wee comment up saying, performance in matches that equal meaningful trophies is the only measure. One can't think of another nation that would tolerate not winning. Even the Elephant Polo head coach got the boot after 2 failed tournaments. There is the old juxtaposition of Townsend is done. He should have been replaced ages ago. Maybe we should have kept Vern Cotter, etc. This has all started again. Alan, we'll have a quick straw poll before we go over to the Patreon. Alan, is it close to Tuesday's oblivion? Tooney's oblivion?
So I've always been I've always been hanging on to Townsend. I think Sunday came very close to tipping the balance for me, and unless there's an improvement, and unless we do something really spectacular against England and France and Wales, of course, then I think we should maybe be looking at Gregor being moved upstairs to director of rugby and Franco taking over if he'll have us.
Oh, and that's even you've even answered one of the questions that's going to come in the Patreon. Iain, are we starting to think it's time for Townsend to go?
Yeah, my Tuesday clock seems to be a bit like the microwave and oven clocks in my kitchen, and that they're at different times. Like Alan, I was a strong defender of Townsend. I have been for quite the time. I think I said somebody I was basically captain of a platoon in an army against the Bring Back Fern brigades. Statistically, we look at him, he's been one of the best that we've had. However, I feel it's had pretty much the same crop of really good players. Obviously, there's been a couple of changes here and there. But we're stagnating. I think with the amount of analysis that comes in these days, I mean, if you're not changing, if you don't have a mass change of personnel, which you can't if you're a national coach because you're kind of tied into people who are eligible for you. You can't go and pick what you can't moneyball it and just go, I want to sign this guy to replace this. There's only so much tweakings to systems you can do before you're figured out. Yeah. Or in the case of Ireland have us figured out for ages, how have we not worked out a way to go around them or what have you? I think there is a finite lifetime to a coach these days. So I'm getting a wee bit bored of just being third. I would rather be fifth one year and then win the next year.
I suppose a caveat would be the Irish forwards it's up front to beat us, isn't it? And which set of forwards in world rugby are better than the Irish? South Africans, maybe the French. So we are talking probably the second best pack in the world.
You wouldn't say the All Blacks are, though, and they still seem to find a way.
Well, we're going to hold this thought just now because we're going to move over to the Patreon side of the pod. I want to first of all thank both Alan and Iain for joining us, and
Eventually, on my part.
Eventually, on Ian's part. And apologies for the late start for everyone. We just had a few wee issues here and there that we finally got sorted out. And a big thank you to you all for joining us. It's great to hear to see you all joining us on the podcast, and also it's great to have a few comments in and being able to put them on the podcast as well and chat about them. So thank you for your input. We'll say that is us for now, and we'll move over to Patreon. Have a good week. Thanks again.
Cheerio.
Cheers.
Now, Ian, I need your help here because
Okay.
I need to know which stream to cut off.
Do we just do end stream? I don't know.
No, don't end stream.
Right, okay. Click on
If I bring edit, can I?
remove. I think if we do remove, see the Facebook one on the top, see at the top, right?
Yep.
Remove.
And remove. Okay. I've removed that.
Delete on Facebook. Right, I think you've
That's done. What about the Scottish Rugby Pod one? Is that the one that stays?
No, I don't know.
Which one stays? Because
nobody tells us stuff, man. No, this is a public one, so we take that one out. I'll do that. I've done that.
Cool.
I think I have. And then what's this? This is another YouTube one.
Yeah.
Scottish
I
Rugby.
just clicked them all
Aye.
because I've got lots of exclamation marks.
Burn it all down.
Yeah.
See, are these the Patreon ones?
Well, so I thought that was what the Facebook one was, but
To be fair, John has several times stopped the Patreon one while I was listening and then walking around Asda and lost my stream. I'm like, John, you stopped the wrong bloody one.
I'm going to get rid of the. There's a premium one for Twitter, which I'm going
So I was going to say, now we're in the Twitter bit, and also this counts as Patreon. We can get the XD fuck
Aye, I've got that. Fuck.
Elon Musk crap.
And then
Have you seen the video of his fucking kid?
Yeah, I've got. Possible steering to your destination, but I don't know what that one is. It's got a big H on it, and then another one. So I don't know.
Hugh Dan Van Stream.
Hugh Dan's stream.
So we want to keep that, but that's the one that's got the big exclamation mark on it, like.
And the same with
The
Patreon live stream as well. And then there's the Scottish Rugby podcast and blog public YouTube. So I guess I'm going to just close them down, and we'll just continue recording and then post on the Patreon, I guess. So I'll remove them.